Hey y'all, welcome to Soccer for Us. I am Bart, and on this episode we are talking about the friendlies coming up for the U.S. men's national team. I know there's a lot of soccer happening in June, but this episode is focusing on the friendlies against Morocco and Uruguay coming up early in the month. However, before we get into that, I need to remind you to please subscribe to Soccer Down Here for all of the great content coming out of the SDH network, including the daily Soccer Down Here show, as well as every episode of the Soccer for Us podcast. Also, make sure to follow the show on Twitter at Soccer for Us Pod. And if you want to support the show, go to buymeacoffee.com/Soccer for Us Pod and buy me a coffee and help support what I do here on this podcast. Now, before I bring on Caleb Cook to talk about these two friendlies and the roster that players that will play in those friendlies, I wanted to talk a little bit about the historic, the groundbreaking, the landmark, equal rights, equal pay, collective bargaining agreement between the U.S. men's and women's national team players associations and United States Soccer Federation. Now, this was two mutually exclusive, in theory, collective bargaining agreements agreed to by the players associations with U.S. Soccer Federation. However, as had been said for a couple years now, especially under Cindy Parlow-Cone, the president of U.S. Soccer, that she wanted to bring both of these parties together to negotiate the same deal. And they did. Back in May, on May 18th, actually, they did announce that this was finalized. And I just wanted to run through a couple of very quick points about it. First, on-field base and performance pay will be equal for the most part. You will have equal appearance fee and performance payment based on the outcome of the match, the rank, the opponent for both teams, with identical tiering structures. So they will still get players will still get an appearance fee for just being called into camp on top of the appearance fee and incentive fee for their performance in a game. This does mean that the women's CBA specifically means that no more guaranteed salaries for those who play in NWSL and play on the U.S. women's national team. So the previous CBA that the U.S. women's national team agreed to with USS Soccer was that they would be basically subsidize their salaries if they played in the NWSL by getting a salary for playing for the U.S. women's national team. That is no longer. So now everyone just gets the same appearance fees and performance fees. Well, at least the same structure, if you will, both men and women, no matter the competition. This includes World Cup, that both teams will get identical game bonuses. The other big thing is that both teams will pool their World Cup prize money, the women and the men, and split it between the people who participated in the World Cup. So they will pool and share a portion of prize money paid to the team's participation in both the 2022 and 2023 World Cups. The players on the 2022 men's World Cup roster and the 2023 women's World Cup roster will be paid an equal percentage of the collective prize money. So basically how it works is U.S. Soccer is awarded the purse of whatever their teams earned in the tournament. U.S. Soccer will put it together and then pay out the men and women what they normally would have paid whichever team won. So usually U.S. Soccer got all the money. Obviously, they didn't pay it all to the players. They used a lot of that to help build the program, but a good portion of it did go to the players. Obviously, in this case, only the women. So for the 4 World Cup titles the women won, they were given a portion of the full purse. So this is going to be the same thing, but you're taking both the men's and the women's World Cup prize monies, putting them together. So I do think this is ultimately a win for the women and probably a nice little boost for the men because they're not going to be winning a World Cup, at least not in 2022. Sorry. At least it doesn't look that way. And then the last real bit is, especially when it comes to competition, is commercial revenue sharing. Both men and women will just split the broadcast and other media partners and sponsorship shares. So it was weird that it wasn't like this already, because U.S. Soccer kind of packaged their media rights together. But hey, now they're equal. That's good. And the other two things that are not really play related, if you will, but first is that childcare during all senior national team camps, U.S. Soccer will provide childcare. As it has done for the women for, as I note, 25 years, the men also have access to that. So again, this is a win for the men who had to agree to this as well. And then U.S. Soccer will also provide a 401k retirement plan for the men and women players, while matching up to 5% of the player's compensation, subject to IRS limits, all that kind of stuff. But basically, they're both going to be getting 401ks through U.S. Soccer, which is also really nice. And again, an equalization of the overall benefits package, which I think was kind of a sticking point for the women and the men, but mostly the women, about, hey, we would like to get all these other things too. So this is good. Overall, just wanted to touch on that and make sure we were all on the same page. Yes, I'm aware that the men, in theory, are losing money, quote, on World Cup prize bonuses. However, as Walker Zimmerman said, and other representatives from the Men's National Team Players Association said, this was the right thing to do. And at the end of the day, what's better for all the players in U.S. men's and women's programs is better for U.S. Soccer as a whole. And honestly, having the same tiered structure for friendlies, for competitive match payouts, that's a good thing. And on the back end, the men are still getting certain things that were not given to them under the previous CBA that now they get. And again, that childcare thing may not sound like a lot. That retirement plan may not sound like a lot, but it is a lot when you're talking about guys who, are trying to raise a family and have to rely on a career outside of, their 35 years on this earth. And for women who also, as they have been, taking children to these camps and needing to have someone provide them with care there. And then again, women who, after their careers are over, are going to need money to rely on when their retirement comes. So we have that settled. Hopefully we can go forward with both teams receiving great support from our wonderful fan bases and working together as they did during this CBA negotiation to create a better culture for soccer in the United States and create better soccer in the United States. Now that that's over, we'll switch to actual games that are about to be played, and I'll bring on my buddy, Caleb Cook. Well, I am pleased to bring back onto the Soccer for Us podcast a man who has no shortage of opinions on U.S. men's national team left back and goalkeeping controversies. It is Caleb Cook from USMNT Corner, or U.S. Soccer Corner, whichever one you're looking at. Caleb, it has been a long time, it feels like, since we've seen the U.S. men's national team play. It has, by the time we'll have played, been almost 3 months. How have you been dealing with this downtime?
I just sit in my room and I stare at a wall. I don't know how to live my life without U.S. men's national team. No, I feel like that's how some of these Twitter users are. But man, I'm ready to see some action. I'm excited, getting the juices flowing. The closer we get to November, the more excited it gets. So yeah, man, I'm ready to talk about it. Let's go.
Yeah, it is weird that we had a jam-packed schedule from June of 2021 Nations League, July of 2021 Gold Cup. We had the month of August off, but that's also the start of European soccer season and transfer season. So, there was some action. And then September, October, November, a game in December, games in January, February, and March. That was a lot of soccer in 2021. And for the men, it's not, at least for the senior men, it's not as busy of a schedule leading up to the World Cup, which is both a good and bad thing. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we have a lot of soccer in June coming up. We have not only the USMNT friendlies against Morocco on June 1st and Uruguay on June 5th, but then we have Nations League matches against Grenada on June 6th, June 14th at El Salvador. And then almost immediately after that, CONCACAF U20 Men's Championship kicks off. We have 3 group games on the 6th, 18th, 20th, and 22nd. One of those against Cuba, which will be fun. And then knockouts will hopefully run through July 3rd. That's both Olympic and Youth World Cup qualifying. So that's a big tournament. And then the month rounds out with 2 USWNT friendlies as they gear up for the Women's Championship in July, which will take pretty much the whole month of July, which is also World Cup and Olympic qualifying. So the U.S. senior men's team may not have a whole lot to play for this summer, but holy crap, the rest of the summer is very important for all levels of the U.S. soccer pyramid.
Really good couple months. I mean, anytime you have that much action going on, it makes for endless entertainment on our favorite pastime Twitters. Plenty of stuff to talk about. Those dead zones, it's like you
I know.
pop open the app and it's like, man, there's nothing to even talk about right now. There will be no shortage of that. But I'm really excited. Especially for the U20 stuff. I mean, you think about the last U20 World Cup with guys making names for themselves, some prominent names now, they were just, we especially us nerds, we knew who they were, but they showed us who they were and who
Yeah.
they be. I'm excited about that.
There's a difference between knowing the name and actually seeing the name in action. And that's going to be the benefit of the U20, especially because, to be quite honest, I don't expect our best U20 talent to be at that tournament because, as we've seen, a lot of these clubs that they play for, they're valuable to the club. I mean, it's not just a guy who happens to be on the roster. I mean, I'll take very specifically Atlanta United, especially after another injury on the team. Caleb Wiley's not getting released to that U20 tournament because he's going to have to play left back for Atlanta United,
Yeah.
And it sucks, but at the same time, like, that's good for them as professionals. So that's a preview of that roster. So just chill when certain names aren't on it. I think we all need to realize that our talent is talented and they're valuable.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can't get too upset about it that they're not in there because it's not like they were just left out for no reason. When you're being left out because you're playing a prominent role for your club team, it's kind of a, you'd love to see them, but you understand why. If people are getting upset about it, then they can go kick rocks.
Yeah. This episode, we're really just going to focus on the roster that came out and then the 2 friendlies that we're going to play at the beginning of June. We'll talk about the Nations League because it does have a different feel than these friendlies. And we'll talk about the Nations League after the friendlies wrap up. So let's dig into this summer roster.
Let's do it.
All right. So we had 27 guys pulled up or called up by Gregg Berhalter. I will just say right off the bat, not a fan of that number, but we'll talk about that after we get through the roster. Goalkeepers, we had 3 of them. Ethan Horvath from Nottingham Forest, Zach Steffen from Manchester City, who has now been scratched. He had to go take care of family business, reported by U.S. Soccer. And so replacing him is Sean Johnson from New York City. So, you just took a City Football Group goalkeeper and replaced him with another City Football Group goalkeeper. We're fine. And then the last one will be Matt Turner from New England. Now, I want to know how you want these minutes or matches distributed amongst these goalkeepers, because I think even with Sean Johnson, all 3 of these guys are pushing for a spot on the World Cup roster for Qatar 2022. Obviously, Zach Steffen, I think you and I would agree that he may not be our first choice goalkeeper, but he probably is Berhalter's first choice goalkeeper. So now you have 2 guys in Horvath and Turner, probably more Turner, who have every chance, I think, to compete for that number 1 spot in this camp. How do you want the minutes to be distributed?
Yeah, I think with Matt Turner, we saw what happened last time Steffen was out. Turner stepped right in and was given all those minutes, and there's not a huge drop off. I think that's one of the things about the goalkeeper position, as far as the U.S. men's national team goes. You can go 4, 5, 6 deep almost. I mean, you're talking Sean Johnson was brought back in. He's been playing really well. Even if guys that are not even called in, there's a lot of shouts for Stephen Fry, how well he's been playing. The American goalkeeper position has always been somewhat of a strength. And even in a somewhat down period for the goalkeeper position compared to previous, cycles, it's still fairly strong and a fairly, I have confidence in that position. So with Steffen being out, I think Turner can step right in. However, I would like to see Horvath, and I kind of talked about it last podcast. I feel like Ethan Horvath he's a really good mashup of what
Yeah,
Zach Steffen and Matt Turner are. Um, like I put it this way, basically, maybe he's not quite as good with his feet as Steffen, possibly, but he's a better shot stopper. And maybe he's not quite as good of a shot stopper as Matt Turner is, but he's better with his feet. He's right there in the middle. And he's got a lot of confidence. The guys like him. He's come up big in huge moments. So I would love to see him get that opportunity. And I think he's just not, he's not given he's not been given a, I don't want to say fair share. That's a hard way. Um, it's the wrong way to put it. And I've said this way before with goalkeepers. Uh, Goalkeepers never a problem until they're a problem, and because of that, it's really hard to um, take a number one keeper take their spot. Right? It's hard to do that. And with Steffen playing, he got hurt. Matt Turner stepped in. There's just not been a ton of opportunities for Horvath. So with this opportunity coming, I would really, really, really like to see it. Just because, like I said, I really like the guy,
yeah,
and I think he could surprise us. I mean, look at the game against was it France in the 2019
yeah.
when
Or
he
it would have
came.
been the 20. Was it 2018? I think is what it was. Yeah,
Was it 18 with Saracen, right?
yeah. It was
And he
2018.
yeah, and played. I mean, fantastic. Played
Right.
incredible. He's a good keeper. So I want to see him get an opportunity. But that's me. What do I know?
Yeah, I think I'd like to at least see him get one game, but I
Mhm.
also understand if Berhalter doesn't
Right.
see Horvath as actually competing for the number one spot, then it's got to be Turner getting all the games because he's at least 1B, if not the
Sure.
starter. And I know
Sure.
I think most of us are split on it as well, but I do think, again, Gregg Berhalter clearly prefers Steffen, but he has shown that Matt Turner is absolutely the number two behind,
Mhm.
the second choice, if you will. So I just don't, I think it would be a missed opportunity to at least see Horvath get a full game because he
Mhm.
hasn't since last June when he played the game after Steffen got hurt in the Nations League final. So I would just like to see him get a full 90 minutes in one of these four games, and if it's against Grenada at home, great,
Mhm.
whatever. Moving
I
on.
think that's the way to put it. I think you're 100% right. Just it would be a missed opportunity to not give him at least
Yeah,
one game. I think you summed it up perfectly.
I say moving on. I actually don't want to move on. Let's talk about Zach Steffen for a second.
Okay.
I hate to spend so much time on goalkeepers because, as you said, it's not that big of an issue. But Zach Steffen seems to be Gregg Berhalter's preferred
Mhm.
goalkeeper,
Mhm.
but he has not been available for
Mhm.
almost half of qualifying and has been
Right.
injured and definitely not playing for his club for sporadically, you know, in and out the entire time that Berhalter has been
Mhm.
the man in charge of the U.S. men's national team. Is this a problem for Zach Steffen? I mean, how can you be the number one keeper but not be even healthy, let alone playing for your
Mhm.
club?
Right. I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, if you're not playing for club, that's one thing, right? We've seen starting keepers for national teams be second in their club. That happens. But if you're not playing for club and you're not available through injury or personal reasons, whatever, I think it becomes kind of difficult to continue to push that person out there as the number one. So I mean, if anything, it's creating a problem that we shouldn't have.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think that's why it's important to look at an Ethan Horvath, even if you're still going to go with Matt Turner as your number one,
Right.
because you need to know, okay, if Steffen isn't available come November and Matt Turner is my number one, is Horvath my number two? Is Sean Johnson my number two? So, I would assume that it'd be Horvath, but we don't know. We need to see him.
Yeah. I just look, Zach Steffen is out of this camp currently for family reasons. We don't know how long that could be. He could come back after family issues have been resolved and come and join the team before Nations League. I don't know. I don't know what his family issues are. I hope that everything works out. But at the end of the day, I have to trust the guy to be the number one. And I don't think personally Steffen is a guy that I trust to be the number one, which means he's going to be starting every game. Berhalter does for some reason. Oh, wait, I think it has something to do with the fact that Steffen was moderately okay for him at Columbus. So, Gregg Berhalter loves comfortability. That's something that he is. He loves to have it the way that he's used to it and the way he wants it. And Zach Steffen has the advantage of having played for him at club level. I don't know, man. I mean, the problem we have is Horvath doesn't start at his club. Turner is not going to be starting at Arsenal. I mean, if he does, great. I'm not going to be mad. Like, that would be awesome. But I just don't see it happening. I mean, after that, Sean Johnson at least is a starter. He's a starter of the, MLS Cup champs. Stephen Fry's starter of a CONCACAF, of a Continental Club Cup winning team. But our three best goalkeepers aren't starting for their club. That's a slight issue.
I mean, we need answers. Steffen being out, you'd love to see him come in and take these, next few games and really just put a stamp on it, erase all doubts. But now, coming in, like I said, we had questions about some spots on these rosters, and now we have another question.
Yeah. This camp is going to be a question answering camp, and that I think goes into the next position group with defenders. You have 9 called in: George Bello from Arminia Bielefeld, Reggie Cannon from Boavista, Cameron Carter-Vickers finally getting a call up from Celtic, Aaron Long from New York Red Bulls, Eric Palmer-Brown from Troy, Anthony Robinson from Fulham, Joe Scally from Borussia Mönchengladbach, DeAndre Yedlin now with Inter Miami, and Walker Zimmerman at Nashville SC. Now, some of these guys were featured in World Cup qualifying. Some of them weren't. Joe Scally got called in, didn't play. CCV not called in at all. EPB and Aaron Long really only called in for the last camp to play. Both of them did. So my question is, who in this defender group do you need to see prove something this camp?
I mean, with Miles, God, it's every time I've talked about it, it hurts. With him, more than likely missing the World Cup, right? We need an answer for that left center back position. First and foremost, as far as all the questions along the back line, I think that one to me is the number one, right? Who's going to partner with more than likely Walker Zimmerman?
Yeah, I think
right?
it's Zimmerman, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know no one out there wants to actually give Walker Zimmerman credit, but he's earned that. And now, especially, I do want to mention that Chris Richards not here because of injury recovery issues.
Right. I mean, if you want to talk about leadership and the way he's played, and then as far as taking into account Berhalter's opinion, which matters, he's the coach. I think you have to say Walker Zimmerman's the favorite to have that right center back spot. So
hey, look, if we're giving guys roster spots because of vibes, at least Walker Zimmerman plays and produces.
Oh my gosh. I think it was Jay Hernandez said, that's great and all, because Wes McKinney, so it was 2 parts, right? The whole part about Christian Roldan, eyes and vibes, whatever. And then Wes McKinney talking about how, he's the first to point out this or that, if there's space here, if you're moving here, whatever. And Jay was just like, that's awesome. Put him on the coaching staff. And you think about it and you look at that and you're like, yeah.
But I don't joke because Walker Zimmerman, I think, has proven to fill that role on the back line of the I don't want to say the dad, but definitely older brother vibes, right? I think he and DeAndre Yedlin filled that very well on this team. And they're both players who have been, I don't want to say necessarily with Yedlin contributing, but playing in a way that doesn't make me scared when they're on the field, right? That's the level.
You need veteran leadership. and he's shown to be that.
Yeah.
And to me, it seems like all the guys respect him, right? It's one
Yeah.
thing to be a Twitter warrior and analyze everything like we do. It's another thing to be on the team, right? Like, if guys respect him and don't have a problem playing with him, they trust
Mhm.
him, well, then I will, right?
Right.
Because they're going to know a hell of a lot more than I am because they're playing with him.
Yeah.
So, look, I have no problem with it. Uh, Berhalter trusts him. The team trusts him. Zimmerman's going to be that right center back. So, like I said, the main question or the most important question as far as the back line is concerned, to me, is who's going to be his partner. I mean, you're two center backs. That's one of, if not the most important partnership on the
Right.
field.
Right.
So him and Miles had a really, really good connection. They were playing really, really well. The stats back that up. It's not going to happen now. So who's going to be able to step in and form that partnership with Zimmerman? Who's going to be compatible and offer kind of what Zimmerman doesn't, right? Zimmerman is a good defender. He's really good in the air. He's going to stop just about everything that comes through. Not as fleet of foot, right? That's where Miles cleaned up so
Right.
many of those, counter opportunities, just with his elite athleticism. So to me, I'm looking to see EPB given that opportunity because I think he
Same.
probably fits that profile
Yeah.
more than the other
More than
guys that,
CCV or Long.
well,
I think
I
EPB
say
is.
that I could see Aaron Long being given that opportunity because that's what Berhalter sees and
I think
wants.
Long and Zimmerman are too similar. I'm
Well, I
not saying it's a
agree.
bad thing, but I think that if you're looking for a center back pairing that complement each other, I don't think that Zimmerman and Long complement each other. I think they are very
They're
similar.
very similar profiles, but I think that's what Berhalter's going to do
Yeah. Great.
based on what we've seen him do. I mean, Aaron Long, up until he was injured, was the guy.
I mean, he was
Um,
the captain of the team, you know? I mean, like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Eh,
So to me, he's going to be given the opportunity, but I would like for it to be EPB.
Yeah, I
Um,
think what I want is I think that what gives me a little bit of hope is EPB actually
yes.
played in
hmm
that final window, and
hmm
Long did, but not in the same way. I think that EPB hopefully proved something to Gregg. No offense to Long, because I know that him not playing in a better league is probably not his fault, but
Right.
EPB does play for a better team. He got moved to that team and performed well. It wasn't like he just happened to be there and a guy got like he moved to that team and contributed a lot to Troy. So I think that speaks well of him. I think he's also a different type of center back from
hmm
Long and Zimmerman. I think he's a little bit better on the ball. I'm not going to say that he's so much better, but like he's definitely a step up. But he
Agreed.
still offers a lot of the recovery speed, good at both spatial and 1v1 defending. I mean, I'm not saying he's great
hmm
or elite at any of these things, but he's
Right.
much better than
He's good
some
enough.
people.
And didn't he
Right.
just get Player of the Month or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's not a scrub. Basically,
Right.
is the point. So give him
My
the
question, I would
opportunity.
like to see CCV and EPB paired together. I don't think that'll happen because that's a little bit too much inexperience on the field, but I
Mhm.
think they might partner well and pair with each other and complement each other well because CCV does offer a lot of the, big, strong athleticism that Zimmerman does. But, he does play for a team in Celtic that they're not bully ball. They
Mhm.
do, he plays for a team that has possession a lot
Mhm.
outside, Walker Zimmerman and Aaron Long do not play for possession-based teams. Uh, Nashville SC is probably the most simplistic form of soccer I think I've ever seen played, but they're good at it. And Red Bulls play the most chaotic form of soccer in the world. So, those aren't necessarily Berhalter type for
Mhm.
me systems, whereas CCV does play in a more possession-based team, mainly because they're just so much better than all their opponents.
Now that said, what do you think the chances that we see CCV that we see CCV? That's weird to say.
So I think he'll get minutes in at least one game. I want to see him get
You think
30
so?
minutes yeah, I would like to see him get at least 30 minutes throughout the entire camp of, 4 matches that we have. Um, I do think that I don't know for sure, but let me just guess based on what Berhalter has kind of insinuated and other rumors that have come out. I think we'll see the best lineup we possibly can against Morocco and Uruguay. I think we'll see some changes, obviously, because you are trying to test guys out, but I don't think that Berhalter will test too much the center back pairing in those games. Oh shit! I broke something. Put something up on the wall and it just fell down. Anyway, so I think that when you look at what the center backs could do, I think he might be a better shout to start against Grenada or play against Grenada, because it'll probably be a game that defensively we're not doing too much. But I could see him come on in a friendly. Again, I want him to get about 30 minutes in this camp to just get actual film on tape of what he can do. And I don't mean like 5 minutes to throw away at the end of the game. Give him 10 to 15 minutes a couple times so we can actually see how are you performing on the field in a relatively meaningful amount of time.
Yeah. So I'm with you, and I've said it before, and it's no secret. I don't rate CCV that highly, not because I think he's terrible. He's not my cup of tea, and that's okay. But with Berhalter, my thinking is he has absolutely earned the call. So yes. Berhalter,
you don't make Scottish Team of the Year and not earn a call.
Exactly.
Up,
and I can say that, like I said, I don't rate him highly, but he 100% absolutely earned a call up and he deserved it.
Personally, I think he's on the same level of Aaron Long. We're like, yeah, you're a good defender in your league. So you deserve a call up. I mean, Aaron Long is, he was very good before he got injured, as you said. He's fine now. I just, I don't want two of the same type of MLS defender on this squad. That's my only issue with having both Long and Zimmerman.
Yeah. I just, with CCV, I just don't know if it's going to be one of those where Berhalter calls him in because he earned it. And it's like, hey, man, here's your call up. And then that's it, right? Is that what Berhalter sees as far as CCV? Or does he come into training and earn some minutes? I would love to see him because honestly, Anthony Robinson proved me wrong. I didn't rate him very highly. I would watch him in possession thinking, oh my God, this guy is terrible. And then he's won me over. He's one of my favorite players now.
Absolutely.
So I don't look at players and say, I'll never like that guy. CCV's dead to me. Like, that's not how I see it. It's just of what I've seen. Okay, great. But yeah, I hope he gets some minutes. I hope he gets an opportunity to show what he can do. And I hope he wins me over and the coaching staff. You can never have enough depth.
He's 24 years old, right? So that's not very old by any stretch for a center back. This could be that, hey, get acquainted with everything. And you know what? You're not a fit for this World Cup. That doesn't mean, but at 29 or 28, he's not a good fit for 2026. You know, that at that point, he could be an old, experienced defender who's been playing in the SPFL for, Lord knows at that point, 5 years at that point. You know, it could – he could be an investment in the future. That's the way I look at it. Or it could be that he's the fifth best center back we have in our pool. And because of injuries and whatever, he's a guy who could be taken to Qatar. I don't know. I just don't think he's top two. I don't think he's a starting center back by any stretch. No. And I don't really think he is a second choice guy at either side. So, all right, let's look at the defenders. Kellen Acosta from LAFC, Tyler Adams from Leipzig, Luca De La Torre from Heracles for now, Weston McKinney from Juventus, Georgie Mihailovich from Montreal, who just rebranded, and it is interesting look. Yunus Musa from Valencia, Christian Roldan from Seattle Sounders, and Malek Tillman from Bayern Munich. Now let's talk about that name. So Malek Tillman was a German youth player. He did play for the US men at the U15 level, but mostly a German youth player. He's from Germany. He and his brother Tim are children of African-American dad who was in the armed forces and a German mom. So they kind of have that same dual national route that a lot of guys have had from Germany. And, you know, he's been playing for Bayern in the, lower league and for their reserves. His brother Tim has been playing for Greuther Fürth in the actual Bundesliga. So probably I would say Tim is the more ready product than Malek. But again, Malek is, 19 years old. It's not, again, a bad thing to call in a guy and say, hey, come here. Hopefully he actually commits and we have him for the next 10 years,
The thing that's confusing to me is he's listed as a midfielder, but coming in, I assumed he was coming in to play the 9. A lot of clips I've seen have him as that striker. So, you know, from previous iterations of rosters and roster releases and graphics, where the guys are listed tends to be where they're played. I mean, it's pretty straightforward and
Yeah.
doesn't miss very often. So that one,
Well,
kind of
he
confused me
and
a bit.
Mihailovich are both kind of that way. Like, I don't think I could
Yeah,
consider Mihailovich an 8.
right.
That's definitely not what he plays for Montreal or where he succeeds for Montreal. So I think both of them are that, like, are you a central midfielder or are you an attacking midfielder? Because I think both of them would say they're attacking midfielders. So maybe
Mm.
this is a hint that Berhalter might try a little bit different formation. I think everyone agrees that we need to try something just slightly different to find a different formation just in case for a World Cup.
Mm.
So maybe this is that adventure into that, or maybe Berhalter is going to force him to play his rigid, mobile pressing 8 in his position. We'll see.
Well, I forget who it was, but someone
We
asked
might
him
not
during
even
the
see
press
Malek. Let's be
conference.
real honest.
No, I mean, there's a very good chance we don't see half of the guys that we would really want to see. It could just be, come on, get acquainted, get their feet wet, get them in, just involved with the guys. But maybe he comes in and shows out, and we do. I don't know. I hope we get to see him because I am curious. Um, like I said, you can never have enough depth, so the more the merrier. Um, but as far as seeing different shapes and formations, and like I said, I forget who it was, but someone did ask Greg if we would see a back three, and he pretty much. I mean, he didn't come out and say 100% yes, but he talked about it. So I
Yeah,
think
he
it's
said he would see a different formation at least,
yeah.
because
I
which is
think
a smart thing to use this,
now I don't know where we're going to see it,
or what it will
against
be.
who or whatever,
Yeah.
but I think it's something that we could see maybe you know and he always when we play three in the back, right, three center backs, he always says 5-3-2 instead of a 3-5-2. Um, I think that's a little bit telling, right? He looks at three in the back as a bit more of a defensive formation.
Right.
So, do we see a three in the back formation when we play Uruguay, right? Is he thinking, hey, let me experiment with a more defensive minded shape and tactical setup versus a really good attacking, very talented, Champions League level player, riddled roster that we're going to see because we're going to see a lot of really good teams in Qatar. Well, I say a lot. We're going to obviously England is the team I'm talking about. I mean, does he think maybe we want to play more defensive against that type of team? I don't know. I'm just trying to, like I said, I'm trying to make sense of it. If we know we're going to see it, where could it be? That's a possibility. Um, Now, who those three in the back are, again, hands in the air because Lord knows what Berhalter's going to do.
Sorry. I think that's the question for Berhalter is just how do you want to play that? And I think that the group of midfielders he has does offer a little bit of versatility in, even if it's still a 3-man midfield, is it two defensive and attacking, or is it one defensive and two more higher placed midfielders? I don't know. I don't know if we know what Gregg Berhalter sees as his alternate formation. We do know that, I think he does stick to the principles of wanting to get 5 players in those attacking zones across the front. So however he can do that is probably what he's going to try to do. My next question about midfielders, though, is does Weston McKinney actually play? And Berhalter addressed this in his press conference. He said that they have a plan for Weston McKinney. Obviously, he was ruled out for the rest of the season for Juventus back in, I want to say, March. It was the beginning of March, right? Yeah. And he never returned, but he was training toward the end of the season. I do think that when they said out for the season, they just said, we're not pushing him to come back. It's fine.
Right.
I would like to see how healthy he is. I don't think we're seeing Weston McKinney start, or if he does, not play very long.
I mean, the first 2 games, I don't think he plays. If he plays, it's probably some minutes in the Champions League. I just don't think you need to push him, right? Like these aren't. It's not like you're calling him in for World Cup qualifiers, and it's he's playing a huge role, and like,
right.
Oh my God, we need him.
I would argue we don't even need him in the Nations League matches.
I don't think we do either. If he's ready to start getting some minutes, then you play him for that, right? For the physical aspect of it. But I don't think we need him for any of these matches. But you listen to the physios, you listen to the training staff, and if he feels good, if he's ready to go, then yeah, you start putting some game minutes on his legs. He's got to get ready.
What I don't want is Kellen Acosta to fill in for him. We have Luca De La Torre and Yunus Musah ready to play, and I would like to see how both of those guys could do as a slightly more advanced number 8. Or maybe that's why Mihailovich has been brought in. Maybe that's why Tillman's been brought in. So I think that we're looking at Mckinney playing a total of like 20 minutes across the friendlies, maybe more. I truly don't know where his fitness is. We'll probably find out more literally the day before the game, where Berhalter gives a press conference and says, oh yeah, McKinney, he's fine. And if that's the case, then he'll probably start and play like a half and then be off, but I can't imagine that Juventus is wanting him to play a lot of minutes right now either.
Did you see the tweet? Some dude posted a picture of McKinney like at a beach or something, or like a little pooch or something, calling him out like, bro, what? Like,
listen, have y'all seen Weston McKinney? The homeboy eats.
Does that? Dude, I mean, guy, he loves his Chipotle, but my thing is like,
it gave me the vibes of like when Joseph was hurt and he's like, yeah, I ate too much. They didn't like how it's like, yeah, because you were hurt. What more? You can't train the way you used to.
Yeah, and my thing, it's a foot injury. It's not like he could sit there and get on the treadmill like while he's, he's got a dislocated shoulder. He can't train. Okay, but he can still run. He couldn't do that. He couldn't do anything. I don't know. It just that tweet pissed me off. So
it was so weird. It was weird. He's done that with a few players though. Like he did that with Paulo Dybala, and I'm just like, these guys are. I also okay. Bart's gonna go on a completely different tangent that has nothing to do with actually soccer, but here we go.
Sorry,
just
guys.
Because you work out and you're a fitness Instagram dude does not mean you are an athlete. Working out does not equate to being an athlete. What Weston McKinney, what Paulo Dybala, what all these guys do has way more technical coordination and biomechanical coordination and skill and talent than lifting freaking weights at the gym, bro. Sorry. Congratulations. You're really good at whatever machine, or you're really good at squats, or you're really good at inverted curls. Congratulations. Go throw a football. Go kick a soccer ball. Oh, you can't do that? Can you even lift a damn couch? No. Stop. Just because you work out does not mean you're an athlete.
It's all about the show muscles, Bart. It's all about the
I
show
don't
muscles.
hate on it. Like, I get it. It's all for aesthetics, but don't try to compare yourself to. I'm not a professional athlete and I look better. Good, because you spend more time in the gym than they do.
Mm-hmm.
They're out running around playing a soccer game, trying to learn the intricacies of human mechanics and strategy. And
you didn't just come off injury, big dog.
Right?
Like, come on, man.
He hasn't been working out for the past 2 months.
Sorry,
I hate it.
It was so dumb, dude.
It was so dumb.
The hate section of the podcast.
Yeah, sorry. That was okay. I do want to see Luca De La Torre and Yunus Musah play together, though. I think that would be a very logical thing to try out because they're both. Musah's the number 1 at his position, but I think Luca's absolutely the third best midfielder we have, third best 8 we have right now. So I would like to see both of them play because. What if McKinney gets hurt? What if Musah gets hurt? Like, we have to have that, and you want to try that with your best players, not some dude who happened to be called in for the camp. And good news. For the love of God, don't play Christian Roldan. We know he's not good for the U.S. national team. I don't care how good he is for Seattle.
Yeah,
he's been good for Seattle for a long time. He has not once put in a good performance.
We talked
for the
about
U.S.
that
national team.
We talked about that last pod. Like, I don't understand how he can be really good. Not like, oh, he plays well. No, like, he's really good for Seattle. And then puts on a U.S. shirt and, like, has he ever played soccer before? I don't know. But yeah, I'm with you. The good thing is with De La Torre is we're not hoping that he gets an opportunity anymore, right? We were we were in that boat already.
Right.
He got an opportunity, he grabbed it, and dude is locked in on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would love to see a Tyler Adams, a De La Torre, and a Musa midfield, and let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
He's a different profile, obviously, from Weston McKennie. There's not a single player in our pool that is the profile of Weston McKennie.
Weston
I
McKinney
don't.
is one of like 3 guys like him in the world.
Yeah,
And
I don't. The athleticism, the strength, with the creativity,
yeah.
that's he's a special player, and we don't have anybody who can do that. But as far as an attacking-minded number 8 who can move the ball, who has creativity, who can pass, Luca De La Torre is a great option. So yeah, I would love
Yeah.
to see him and Musa paired.
Let's go to the forwards. We have Brendan Aronson. When this was released, he was of Red Bull Salzburg, but now he is with Leeds United. Gets that move to join Jesse Marsh in the North Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, whatever freaking region of England that is. Somewhere that doesn't matter anymore in England. Paul Arriola from Dallas, Jesus Ferreira from Dallas, Jordan Morris from Seattle, Christian Pulisic from Chelsea, and Tim Weah from Lille. And then the newcomer, Haji Wright from Antalyaspor from Turkey. Now, this is the guy that people have been clamoring for. He has scored a lot of goals in the Turkish Super League this year. He has been consistently playing at a good level for his club. What does that mean?
I mean, here's the thing. If Kyle Larin can be as good as he can be, or as good as he is for Canada in the CONCACAF region, for international soccer, whatever, and that's where he's playing, and Haji Wright is playing in the same league, and playing better, why can't he play the same role for the U.S. men's national team? My thing is, you see what he's doing. Give him a call up. That's happened, right? He's earned the call up, just like the CCV thing. I think with the difference between 2 players in Haji and CCV, 2 players that have earned the call up, right? I think Haji has more of a chance to play and give more meaningful minutes in these next few matches, simply because his position isn't as deep, right? There is no one at that number 9 spot other than, I would say, Jesus Ferreira's probably got the tightest grip on it right now.
I think now,
right?
But
present kind of by default, right? I mean, he's played well, he's earned it, but there's just not been a guy who's like, nail in the coffin, like stamped it, mine. This is, this is my spot. It's still kind of out in the open, and so when you've got a guy who's doing what he's doing, you give him that opportunity, because maybe it translates to the U.S. men's national team. I hope it does. I'd love to see it.
That's
I don't
all we
care
can
who
do.
it is. I don't care what his name is. And all you've listened to all the analysts talk about how Hercules Gomez wasn't really a part of anything, but was hot at the right time, and then boom, stamped his ticket to the World Cup. Like, it happens. Maybe we see that with Haji Wright. I hope we do. I want answers at the 9. I want a guy who can come in and give solid minutes, be a part of the press, but put goals in the back of the net. I want it. So yeah, I think, like I said, it's, as far as those 2 guys are concerned, as far as earning a call up because of the way you're playing, he probably has the fast track to more minutes, more
I would
meaningful
like for
minutes.
him to start, just to give him the feeling of like playing a full game and trying to get, because I don't think it's fair to bring a guy in for 20 minutes and say, okay, try to go score a goal. Because sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. And when it comes to strikers, they're very seldomly able to create something completely on their own, right? Especially in the Berhalter system. So he needs to have at least a 45-minute showing for me to maybe 30 minutes, but even still, I would like to have him start a game or at least start a half so I can go, okay, how did he play throughout the ups and downs of a game, right? Because he has been scoring goals. He's got 14 goals this season. But, we've seen Jordan Pefok, who was banging in goals in the Swiss Super League. And I don't think the Swiss Super League and the Turkish Super League are vastly different. I think that the Turkish League is better. That's come on.
It's still similar, yeah.
I think that if he can score, great. Because that's something that strikers just don't do for this team. But I do think that Jesus Ferreira is right now the first choice. But that is in no way, shape, or form concrete, pin, nothing. Right. That is just the dude who has shown the most more consistently throughout his time with the U.S. men's national team. But no one has any right, hold, whatever on that starting striker position. So I would like to see Haji Wright start or at least play a 45-minute chunk of a game.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, you've got to have that familiarity with the guys. You've got to have some of that continuity, and you can't get that when you're thrown in for the last 20 minutes. Right. So yeah, have him start. Let him get with the guys. Feel comfortable. That way, you can actually see what he can do, and giving him a real opportunity.
Well, that's the 27 guys that Berhalter called in. We do have reason to believe that some of these guys will leave after this set of friendlies. I would say that stands to reason that there may be guys brought in just for the Nations League games. I don't know for sure, but I could, if you send Aronson, Pulisic, McKinney, and Adams home, the big guys, I could see you calling in someone else. Maybe not Adams, he hasn't played as much, but you could bring in a guy. If you send home Pulisic, maybe you can bring in, I don't know, an MLS guy that has been playing well this season that you want to test out. Or there's options. If you send home McKinney, maybe you say, hey, Alex Mendez, you come up. That's probably not going to happen. I'm just giving examples. So I could see guys coming in, but I think for the most part, this is what the roster is going to be.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think it's probably going to be a few Euro-based guys leaving, and then maybe becoming a bit more domestic-based as far as the roster goes. Yeah.
Now, when we look at the roster as a whole, 21 of these 27 guys, and when I calculated that, I calculated it with Steffen, but I'm going to include Sean Johnson now for that number. He never played in World Cup qualifying, but the dude was ever present. 21 or 27 played in World Cup qualifying. Only 3 don't have caps. So my question is, of those 6-ish guys, right, who didn't really play in qualifying, who do you think will have the most answers for us?
Oh,
I have one.
Well, okay. Let me hear what you say first.
Joe Scally.
Okay. Yeah.
I do think, even though there are Reggie Cannon and DeAndre Yedlin on this roster, I think I would like to see Joe Scally get, again, a 30 to 45-minute run out in one of the friendlies, because it would be foolish, in my opinion, for Gregg Berhalter to not see a kid who is playing in the Bundesliga. And I get it. He is not playing as well as he did, but he's still a guy on a first-team roster playing in the Bundesliga for a team that is not only just historically pretty darn good, but also right now a pretty good team. I think it would be foolish for Berhalter to not play him, especially when you can't tell me that Cannon and Yedlin are indefatigably great right backs, right? I think Yedlin has the advantage there, as we talked about in our last podcast with the 2D, but why not look at Joe Scally? He also has the benefit of being a guy who can play left back. I'm not saying that's where I want him to play, but it's just one of those of why would you not look at him in a game of these 4 games that ultimately aren't that important? At least 3 of the 4 aren't really that difficult anyway.
Do you think Berhalter sees him as even a slight option at left back?
Probably not, and I don't blame him for that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that Scally would be best deployed as a left back in this system where we do want our fullbacks to get forward, right? That said, having the ability and playing it at a fairly regular basis at your club. And by that, I mean he's played it a few times, right? It's not a Kellen Acosta where like, oh my gosh, 7 people got injured and he filled in at left back. Scally has actually played that position for his club. I think that is valuable to have. That doesn't mean I think he should be considered a left back, but it is one of those of like, okay, if your thought, because we both agree that Berhalter probably sees Sergiño Dest as the second choice left back. So, and there hasn't been a left back to really lay claim to that. I mean, George Bello's in this camp, but that he has been not good at the national team level. Sam Vines hasn't played since Gold Cup and wasn't phenomenal at the Gold Cup. Clearly, Jonathan Gomez is probably going to end up playing for Mexico. He was on the roster for the super roster for the U20 tournament. Joe Scally just makes sense because if anything, he and Dest can both be you're a right back, but okay, well, if we have to, we can play you a left back. I think Dest is better at that because he's just a better soccer player, but why not?
I think in closed tournaments with closed rosters, playing multiple positions is an invaluable characteristic.
This is the argument that everyone gives me about freaking Christian. Oh, he can play multiple. No, he's bad at multiple positions. Just because he can do it doesn't mean like.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm bad at speaking Spanish, Italian, and French. That doesn't mean I'm good at. That means I can do it. Don't take me as your guide.
I've seen people say that as far as roll down. I mean, listen, maybe they can work on getting his coaching licenses and then bring him to Qatar. That way he doesn't take up a roster spot. I don't know how realistic that is. But as far as his vibes and eyes, I mean, they're apparently invaluable to this team. So if we could figure out a way to keep those eyes.
No other player in the world in this pool could possibly bring positive vibes and good eyes for the coaching staff.
Let me ask this question. Do you think the 2018 France national team had a player on that roster that held that roster spot because they had vibes and eyes?
Yeah, Olivier Giroud, but he also freaking scored.
There are levels to this.
Yeah, like Ainu Benes.
Wow.
There's. It's one of those things where I'm like, if your vibes and 2018 World Cup roster for the U.S., the vibes and eyes probably would have been a guy like Nick Romando, your third choice goalkeeper. Hey, congrats, you've been a great long-time MLS guy. If we have to put you on the field, it's probably unlikely. We're not that scared. Sorry.
Yeah.
To go back to Joe Scally, I think.
Yeah, sorry. No, we 100% need to see him. We 100% need to see him.
Do you need to see Tillman? Do you need to see Tillman in this camp?
No, and here's why. Because does he realistically have a shot to be in Qatar? With his position group, I would say it's highly unlikely, barring a couple of injuries.
Shit. This is just a random thought. I'm sorry, but maybe Tillman's coming into this camp just to see how he is, and maybe he'll go off to the U20 camp when we go play down there. I don't know, but I'm with you. He is not. I'm sorry. Maybe he could be. He could be. Like, he could wow us. I'm not saying he couldn't.
I hope he does.
1,000%. I don't see him as a guy.
Right.
And granted, I will admit that I haven't seen much of him because he plays in a league that I can't watch. But he does. But that that you can't tell me that a kid playing at the, the third or fourth rank in the German football pyramid is ready to go take on a World Cup for the U.S. men's national team. That doesn't mean that he's not. I mean, again, he's 19. So this is can we get him for 2026 type deal? And I think he knows that. I mean, it's not like he's going to go play for Germany this World Cup either. So he's not stupid to that. I don't need to see him. If he comes on for 10 minutes or 5 minutes at the end of a friendly, or we're up, whatever it is to whatever against Grenada in the home Nations League match, great.
That'll
make
some
a good
people
story.
say, yeah, but Gio Reyna, yeah, but Yunus Musa. But the thing is, it's a little bit different, right? They're playing major minutes for the first team in first division.
Yeah.
It's different. Can he come in and wow us? Sure. Again, I hope he does. It's highly unlikely. So no, I don't need to see him. I want to see Joe Scally. I want to see him, honestly, at both spots. I want to see him at right back. I want to see him at left back because
Okay.
we need answers. So
Well, and
how
here's the
can you get
thing.
answers? You got to see it.
Robinson, we don't actually know if he's healthy or not. That was a weird report where it was reported that he was
Yeah.
going to need surgery, not major surgery, but just like a, hey, you're going to need some stuff cleaned out in your knee.
Yeah.
But then he's playing.
And then all of a sudden, no, just
And then he
good.
gets called up. So, maybe it's one of those like, Anthony, we don't like Jedi. You're definitely the starting left back. We'll play
We
it for
don't need to
45
right.
minutes, and then we'll play Bella for 45 minutes, one friendly. We'll play you for 45 minutes, and then maybe Scally gets a run out at left back for 40. Like, I don't know, but I just don't see Anthony Robinson doing the, hey, you're playing every minute, every match this window. So there should be time for Scally to play left back.
Or here's what happened. They took him in for surgery and then realized that he was a robot. And so they just oiled up his knee real quick and said, you're good to go. No
Like
human
Dorothy
being.
when she encountered the Tin Man.
Yeah.
Well,
No human being plays as many minutes that he played in World Cup qualifying and doesn't fall apart.
And in league play,
just no way.
They play 8 million games in the championship.
And they're playing crazy physical soccer. Like he's not real. So that's what happened. I just wanted to clear that up. Go ahead and put that out there on record. But yeah, I mean, it could be a situation where we see one guy this game, next guy next game, next guy next game. Like, here you go. You all get a chance, because I think that number 2 left back spot is top 3 questions for this roster.
Was there any snub from this roster?
I mean, here's my thing with the roster. Sure, there are snubs, but then there were explanations for all of them, right? Now, how much do we buy into those explanations?
We'll talk about that.
For a lot of them, okay, sure, I buy it. But for the one that we're all thinking of, I'm not even going to say his name because we all know who we're talking about right now. The explanation for that one, just as the explanation for him every single camp for the last 3-4 months, I don't buy. No one buys it.
So I think the couple people that I think there was one person in particular that someone was people wanted, and that was Richie Ledezma, especially because Berhalter talked about him. There was the whole dual national panic before this, and Berhalter, and I buy this answer because it checks out, is he and Ledezma apparently talked, and Ledesma's like, I'm not ready to compete for a spot right now, and that's probably because he just got back from ACL injury, and then started playing, had a little bit of a setback, started playing again. Homeboy must be tired. He also literally just got engaged. Congrats to Richie Ledezma. So, like, whatever. He's still young enough to not be written off completely.
No, and I wouldn't call him a snub. To me, a snub is like,
I agree.
To me, a snub is a John Brooks. Like, here's a guy who 100% needs to be in this camp and is not. That's a snub to me.
Especially because you could have brought him in as just you could have brought 5 center backs. There's no reason why you couldn't have.
When you can't explain it and you're just making stuff up, that's a snub to me. Ledezma, like, there were a lot of things that could be said that's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think of anyone else that like was a snub other than John Brooks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, all the other ones there, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of guys that I'd love to have seen.
Right.
But they were either injured, right? Coming back from injury, not full fitness, personal reasons, super tired from other, from their league seasons, like all those reasons for a lot of those guys. And then there's a few that I would like to have seen that are playing, like Paxton Pomacall. But it's not a snub per se, because again, he's not one of those guys where it's like, oh, he 100% should have been here. No, I mean, I can understand why he wasn't. But yeah, that's kind of how I view everything.
The quote is, trust me, he's not out permanently. Do you believe Gregg Berhalter? Because I don't.
I just, listen, I understand why he hasn't come out publicly and been like, there was some beef, blah, 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 blah. You don't want to air dirty laundry. I get it. I get it. I would rather him just say, yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Next question. Please give me
Or
that.
come up with a better, consistent answer. Like, you can just say, like, look, he doesn't fit the style of play, and just stick to that. Like, he doesn't fit our style. He doesn't fit our style. He doesn't fit our style.
I would take the Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined. Like, honestly.
Yeah. Take a Bill Belichick approach. Just say,
hey, Greg.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, we see John Brooks. Again, he's not been called. Yeah, I'm just here so I won't get fined. Like, I'll take that all day long versus, he's got some stuff we want him to work on. Like, dude, come on. It's getting frustrating.
And then don't bring him into a camp that's more than 2 weeks long so that you can work on it. Like, that's where it's just bullshit, Greg. I'm sorry. I don't believe you, because when you say it, then you don't follow up with what you said the reasoning was, right? So no, I'm sorry, John Brooks is not coming to Qatar. If he does, it will be the gag of the century. And honestly, I would be gobsmacked if he comes to Qatar. And the reason I say that is because this was the perfect.
Oh my gosh! With Miles going down,
Miles is out. You have again 2 to 3 weeks with these guys in camp. Why not bring in a guy who has World Cup experience, has played massive amount of minutes in the Bundesliga, Champions League, even though they weren't great. What the hell? Why would you not do that?
Scored a goal in a freaking World Cup.
We don't have anyone else on this roster who can say that. So it's at this point, Greg, I don't believe you anything you say about John Brooks, and just tell us that he's not coming. You don't see him making the roster for the World Cup. Yeah. Anyway, let's play a game. on the Scoville scale of USMNT fan enragement, where are you on this roster? What pepper level are you at?
So, you call me boring. I'm a jalapeno, right? Here's why. Because I can take a bite of a jalapeno and I'm good, right? It's a little hot. It's a little spicy. But, like, I'm not, running to the refrigerator to get a glass of milk.
Yeah.
Because I'm dying, right? Like, there's some stuff. But, yeah. And I'm not going to say, like, a bell pepper, right? Like, tastes like nothing, right?
The issues I have with this roster are going to be gone in a minute. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You'll take a bite of a jalapeno, and you'll forget about it.
If someone sits there and they tell me that they're, so freaking fired up about this roster, and they sit there and throw out, like, ghost pepper or stuff like that, like, that you can't eat without crying, then you're an idiot. Please unfollow me. Like, if you're that upset about this roster, there's probably some personal issues, right? Because as far as what was available and what we have and who has earned call-ups, and I mean, it's a good roster.
Look, even roster. 11 Yanks and tactical manager are, like, super chill about this roster. So that's how you know that it's really not much to be angry about, right? Like, even they're like, okay, fine, Ariel is here, great.
U.S. men's national team thermometer.
Yeah, like they when I listened to the both, they're like, okay, great. Ariel has been playing well. Rodon's been playing well. Why? Like, you can't say that they haven't been. So what are you going to do? I think we're all mad about John Brooks, but I think if you're continuing to be mad about John Brooks not being here, you're wasting stress on it. I feel like we need to continue to explain and just call Berhalter out for the bullshit. But, like, he's not here. Okay. You're lying to us again. It's fine, Greg. Like, I don't trust now. I have doubts about your trustworthiness, but, like, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel. Like, John Brooks is the tiny bit of spice that I feel, and it'll be gone by the time that, like, I move on to the next meal.
Exactly.
All right. So Berhalter said that he had a few goals for this camp. He didn't necessarily a few priorities, I should say. He didn't necessarily rank them, but I want you to kind of like prioritize the priorities, right? So let's think about this. He said he wanted to try out a 3-man back line / he really just said another formation, but 3-man back line. He said he wants to introduce new players to the system. He wants to fine-tune offensive transition and verticality. And he wants to talk about World Cup goals with the group. How do you rank those in order of most important to least important?
I think most important is fine-tuning offensive transition, right? We talked about every World Cup qualifying window about missed opportunities, right? Every single window we talked about it. Because the thing is, we created opportunities, we created chances, and we just didn't finish them. Right. So we cleaned that up, and like if we could go back, right, do some scrubbing, clean it up, get a bit more clinical in our scoring opportunities, then World Cup qualifying, as far as the overall picture, looks a whole lot better, right? So I would say that's probably number one.
Yeah, again, I think that's been the struggle is, and we've created chances, we just haven't scored, but
right.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to, and so if you're gonna spend time on some of these goals, to me, that's got to be number one. The second, I'd probably say the 3-man or different formation, whatever, right? Just having a different look to go to if you need to, right? If you don't work on something like that and you get into a game and you desperately need to make some sort of change, and then you try to on the fly in the middle of a game and you've never done it before, it's going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly fast. So I think it's extremely important to have something like that in your back pocket to pull out and say, hey, we've done this before. Here we go. It might not be your best look ever, but I think it's important to have some sort of a different option to go to. So that's probably number 2 for me. 3 is just getting guys integrated, getting their feet wet, learning the system more, right? We've got some new guys that are coming in that could potentially play large roles, right? Like if Haji Wright comes in and he's banging in goals, then hey, buddy, you're now a part of our plans. And like we've talked about before, he hasn't been a part of any of these camps. He's not super familiar with the system. So I think that's really important. But again, the reason I don't have it higher on my priority list is just because it's not 10 guys, it's 3,
Yeah, that makes sense because even the new guys, I don't know for sure if they're even a part of the plan for Qatar. Like, as much as I think Mihailovich has been really good for Montreal, he hasn't shown that he's a part of that. Same with Haji Wright. Like, I would love for him to show it, but like up until this point, it's been like, I guess. So it's hard for me to think about that. And then I don't know. So the last one would be what are our goals for the World Cup? Because I think that's something that honestly is something he could do outside of a camp. Like that's a PowerPoint presentation he sends the guys and it's like, hey guys, and it's like, what do you think the goals of the World Cup are? Like make it out of the group, beat England. Like I don't know. I'm struggling. Like when you said talking about our goals for the World Cup, I was like, win games. I don't really understand like
play good soccer.
Yeah.
Right?
Play soccer good.
Don't look like we've never played before.
Yeah. And that sounds bad, but like I know he has goals when he's definitely a PowerPoint guy, so he always has goals for his camps and he explains those to the guys when they get in. And that's different. But like the goals for the World Cup should not be like, hey, this World Cup, we're gonna try to do like this is not like a new practice. You know what I'm saying? This is like, bruh, like your goals should be to play the soccer that you play and play it well. But I mean, I get what he's also saying. Like, I think that there will be maybe not goals, but they'll talk about like, hey, for the World Cup, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're probably going to be doing for travel wise. This is what we'll be doing where we'll be staying. Like that kind of stuff
Right.
is different than like goals for the World Cup. I mean, like unless the goal is like go see some cool historic site or like go play soccer or tennis on top of one of the Dubai rooftops. Like that would, I don't know.
Freak me out. Those are some really high buildings.
Yeah, same. Um, all right. So anything else you want to say about this roster? I mean, 27 players, most of whom I would say are kind of locked into a roster spot. Maybe there's, especially at the center back position, I think there's jostling to see who's going to be at what order, especially with Richards out. I think there's a chance for someone to lay claim to one of the starting spots, if not one of the top two at whatever spot. But I mean, what more do you want to see from these 4 games? And it's weird because we have 2 friendlies against really good teams that are going to the World Cup. We have a Nations League game against a team that's just not anywhere close to the level. Like this team didn't make World Cup qualifying, right? Like it's just hard to like take this game as something you're going to learn a lot from. And then you have an El Salvador team that has proven to be really sticky for us, but not like a team, again, not a team going to the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to see?
I mean, to me, it's all personnel based.
Okay.
Because of the questions that I have for specific spots, right? We talked about, coming into it, left center back spot, huge question mark, who's filling in, right? Number 2, the backup left back spot. Who can we really count on? There's several options. Let me see someone grab it, take it. Let's move on, right? With the 8s, right? Attacking midfields. You got McKinney, Musa, De La Torre, and then who, right? So it's all these question marks that I really want to have a little bit more clarity going into November. And there's a lot of guys that are in this roster that are going to be playing in these games that I think have the ability and could potentially give us some answers there. We talked about Horvath, EPB. As far as the left back spot, Bello, Vines, Scally, someone, come on, show me something, right?
Right.
I don't care who it is, right? There's no vendetta against certain players there. I just want someone to take that spot. With this roster talking about that 8 spot, there's a few guys that can play there, but there's with Georgie Mihailovich, right? He's listed as a midfielder, but I see him more as a Brendan Aronson type player, right? Like he can play attacking mid,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
a lot of times does, but I like him as a winger, right? Like tucked in winger. It's like almost like a hybrid type. Let me see him there. Because I think he's someone who, we see how he's playing in the MLS right now. I think he's someone who could put his name in the hat, and then maybe potentially displace another name like Jordan Morris, right? I think Jordan Morris is probably in that hat to go, but to
Is
me,
he? I
he's
mean, but
not the
sincerely, I want to
same.
touch on that because
I think he might be. I think he might
because
be because of how Gregg sees him, not because
I
of
get that, but if you have a healthy
not
Gio
because of
Reyna,
me.
a healthy Tim Weah, a healthy Brendan Aronson, a healthy
Hmm.
Christian Pulisic,
Hmm.
those are your top 2 wingers, like
Right.
at both sides. Like I don't think there's any debating that. So then it comes down to like, do you bring Ariola or Morris? Maybe that's the question, because are you bringing 5 wingers when, to be fair to all of those guys, I mean, Pulisic probably isn't going to be deployed as a right winger, but like Weah and Ariola could interchange. And you can't tell me that Gio Reyna couldn't also figure out how to play the left wing. You know what I'm saying? So
Of course. Yeah, he can play all of them.
I
I just
am curious what Ariola and Morris, where they fall in, because I think
I
they're
just
fighting for
mean
the final spot.
I just mean in the hat as far as like there's almost no point in time where you can say these guys are for sure it, right? Because of injuries. So
Sure.
yeah,
Okay.
I
I get what
I
you're
would
saying.
say all those guys are
Yeah.
ahead of him, but he's still up there in the pecking order in
Right.
Berhalter's eyes. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if it comes down to it, can someone jump him? Um, and I think a Mihailovich could do it. I think he has the ability to give you what Jordan gives you, not the pace, but a scoring threat.
Sure.
We've seen it, but the added bonus of being able to play a bit more central and a bit deeper than a Jordan. So I like I said,
Yeah.
I've got some questions there. I want to see some answers, so I'm excited about it. And again, I don't hate Jordan Morris. It's
No,
no
I like
bashing
Jordan
him.
Morris.
Yeah, I
Really
really
do,
like him.
but
I don't believe he's been the same player
no, he hasn't.
since he's come
It's the
back.
unfortunate reality of injuries. I mean, we're seeing that
Right.
around the league of MLS where you
Yeah.
have guys coming back from injury who aren't the same. But I understand what you're saying about Morris. I still think that Morris and Areola are kind of fighting for that final spot of like, you're the guy who knows the system well and does good things in the system, but like you're clearly just not as talented as.
No, and you're
guys.
100% right. And I'm going to be honest, I forgot all about Areola when I said that. I think Areola probably has the edge on Morris.
Yeah.
Because of his defensive work rate. He's going to get, like, if you're talking about a guy who's probably not going to start, right? If you bring Jordan or Areola, either one of them, they're probably not going to start. So you're looking at a bench role. Who do you think Berhalter is going to deploy later in a game?
Yeah. Well, and this is where you
Depends.
look at what do you want in that final roster spot, because Areola and Aronson are very much the same player in terms of like what they bring to the team and how they operate on the field. So having a guy who does everything that Brendan Aronson does might not be the worst thing, because, you might need a guy who can do that. But Brendan Aronson's also not going to start. It's not like Brendan Aronson's like, I mean, he might start a game, but he's not starting every game, especially not on the left wing. So I don't know. This is something that, like, when you get into the weeds of roster building, that you have to ask yourself. So I think that both of those guys could go a long way in making a case for themselves during this camp. I also don't know how much they're going to play this camp.
Reading Berhalter and trying to predict what he's going to do it has proven to be very difficult.
Yeah.
So
I don't think the questions we have for this particular camp are very serious, because we're looking at to be fair, a little bit of it is like, who's your backup left back? Who's your second or your third and fourth choice center backs? Like, those are important questions to ask. But they're not.
Depth.
Oh my, yeah. I mean, because even the 9 question is like, I don't know. Someone's gonna, like, at the end of the day, we're gonna play someone at the striker position, and they may or may not perform, because that's how it's been for the last 2 years. Maybe. I mean, if anything, that's the most hopeful. So hopefully we figure out what happens with the 9, and hopefully at the end of the day, I just want us to perform well in Nations League and look coherent against 2 teams going to the World Cup.
The only one that is, I think, must be answered. It's left center backs because Miles is out.
Yeah,
we have to have an answer there.
Yeah, that's fair. And I don't know if we'll get that answer this one, because Chris Richards.
No, we might not. Yeah, 100%.
But like,
100%.
Can EPB do it? Can CCV do it? Can Aaron Long? Like, these are questions that will be asked, and we have 2 very quality opponents that we will be able to test these against. And that's the benefit of this camp, is you have 2 teams coming in Uruguay and Morocco, who are certifiably good teams. They are going to the World Cup. Like, they are a good team. You don't have bad teams at the World Cup. So that's a positive. All right. Well, let's wrap it up. We've talked a lot about things that don't really matter, but that is what happens when you have
our favorite thing
like this, where there isn't a whole lot to actually, like, there's so many minute details that we're talking about with this roster. So Caleb, thanks for joining me again. Tell us where we can find you, and all that good stuff.
USMNT Corner and J. Caleb Cook 1.
Thanks. You can follow the show at Soccer For Us Pod. Make sure you subscribe to Soccer Down Here, so you get all of the coverage coming out from the SDH network. And again, you can support the podcast by going to buymeacoffee.com/soccerforuspod. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bart. I'm out.